Okay, pause my music. There you go. Michonne chapter. Are we gonna shoot guns? Cause she barely shoots gun in the show. She uses like what, katanas? She's locked in, she's taking it all in. That's what he said. My choices? Save files? Oh, it doesn't copy from my previous one? Okay, the previous menu. Play. Start episode 1. I wonder what her story is like. Oh, you look adorable with red hair. Thank you. No, you look adorable. I wonder what's gonna happen. I'm so curious what her story is like. I remember in the show she had like a daughter. Is this before?
I left so many people that I loved behind.
Nah, I'm too sexy to be adorable. If you're sexy and I am adorable, then why don't we
So many.
make sexy, adorable children? Wait, what episode season? This is the DLC. Episode 1
But there are 2. Just
of the DLC. Michonne DLC. Shut up, virgin! Hey, hush! Oh, honey, say more. Oh, press A to chop bushes.
I thought I was done with them.
Oh.
They're not done with me.
They're not done with me. Oh, who are you? Probably wouldn't even know how to kiss. I know how to kiss, okay? I know tongue action. Doesn't get I'm a great teacher. Hey, yo. Why is there a door in the middle of the... Oh. It's her lore! We're gonna learn her lore! Oh shit, is it too loud? Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh my god. Oh, what did I just walk into? Welcome, Michiwi! Welcome! How are you? How's your day? Yeah, we're just talking about ton action, yeah. What's up? I'm playing The Walking Dead! Oh my god. Thank you for the head pass. Thank you. Audio sounds fine to me. Alright. I hear it blasting in my ears. Okay. Wait, are those her kids? Those are her kids, right? Okay. Oh my god. I'm gonna break my Q button. I swear. E. Q. Q. Oh, he touched my face. Q. Oh my god. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. Also, welcome in. Demi Kristen Hunter. Welcome. How are you? How was your day? I can show you what real blasting is, shit. Hey yo, hey yo. You got me here blushing. Oh my god, she's so badass. Don't drop your sword while you drop your katana. Pick it back up. Pick it back up. Oh. What are you looking at? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, so suspenseful. Thank you for the redeem. Thank you.
Hey.
The blush matches your hair. Thank you. It's been a very boring day, but at least I get to watch a chef stream. Oh my god! Oh, we have fun here. It's very, I don't know how to explain how my stream is. Chaotic. Cringe. Chaotic cringe. Synergetic. Load. What are you gonna shoot?
Some days I envy the dead.
You shoot yourself. Is she gonna shoot herself? Pull the trigger! Wait! What if I pull the trigger? Will I die right away? Pull the trigger. Oh! I hope you have a great time here. This is a very, very safe space. Right, guys? A safe space. Yep. We don't judge here. We do a little bit, but... Three weeks later. It's okay, I'm munching on gummy worms. Oh my god, I love gummies! I love munching on gummy bears. Gummy bears, gummy worms, peach rings. Oh my god.
Fuck.
Swedish fish. Oh, I gobble that shit up.
Rashid, come in. Over. Vanessa, you there? Damn it.
Girl, same? Really? I know a lot of people don't like Swedish fish. I don't know why. I think it's just like...
Your shift isn't for another hour.
I don't know. I see a lot of people not liking Swedish
I think
fish.
those
But I love Swedish fish. It's so
holding up okay?
good.
Don't worry about it. Not the easiest to read.
Honestly, I don't know.
I honestly don't know.
This stuff you're dealing with, it's not gonna go away overnight. Just please tell me if, you know, if it gets as bad as it did.
I just need to keep busy.
Oh! Oh!
Oak?
Whoa! Get down here, Michonne's
He's named after a tree? Professor Oak!
I still haven't heard from Rashid or Vanessa. It's not like those guys to be in contact with this.
I finished Dead Island yesterday and almost...
We trade every
what?
time I
It
think
almost made
things-
it insta... Why?
Everything's just...
What's like you finished it so quick? Oh my god.
just doesn't make sense.
Wait, who did you
Their boat is always
play in Dead
around.
Island? Who did you
Vanessa,
pick?
Rashid, come
They
in.
might be dead.
Something might have happened to them, Pete. Maybe they just didn't make it.
And maybe they're still out there. Maybe they need our help. We just don't know. That's the problem. Maybe we can pass by again on our way back. Listen. You hear it? You hear it, right? It sounds like a woman's voice. Vanessa, that you?
Vanessa. I don't hear anything.
I don't hear anything, Pete.
She's there. I just gotta find the right
I don't mind the
frequency.
fish, but Sally, I can't do the texture. Really?
Michonne?
Actually, I like the texture. Is it too sticky
Again
for you?
with the shortwave?
It's not really gummy. It's
I'm
like
not just giving up. This bay
like
was full of
chewy.
boats just a year ago.
it's like
They went
sticky,
somewhere.
you know.
If they left, it was probably for good reason.
But
Then I wanna know why.
well, being little spawn camp and died 4 times before I
Hello?
got to a safe space.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
I mean, not gonna lie, Dead Island is more fun. It's really fun when you
You
play
heard it
with
that
like
time,
other
right?
people,
She said help.
I don't know.
and
Pete.
a lot more
Didn't sound
easier.
like it.
But it's somewhere. She might know what happened here. No, damn it. We're losing the signal. Look, if we don't start caring about the people that are out there, we're no better than the damn walkers.
Yeah.
All we'll
Walkers.
find out there is trouble, Pete.
I mean it. What's the point in just surviving? We gotta do better
Then
than
let's
that.
help.
All right, so let's help her.
At least someone gets it. You're the only one on this boat that even comes close to understanding. Not Berto, not Sadiq. Especially not
Okay.
fucking Oak.
Not fucking
You know
oak.
there are people worth helping.
Thank you for the hydrating, thank
Look over
you.
for me, okay? I'm
So
gonna
this
turn
fish
the
is
boat
more
around.
like soft chews, yeah. But I love that texture though. Should I turn off radio? What did he tell me to do? Oh. Is that right? Was that right? Oh! Where are you?
Where are you?
I just noticed there isn't a cooldown to hydrate. Yeah, there's no cooldown, but there is a limit though. I think it's 5 per person.
Anything?
Back in the
I
day
heard her.
when I didn't have a limit,
I knew it.
people would spam it all the
this is a
time.
bad
I would have
idea,
like
Pete.
100
You
messages
wanna
of
find
just
more people.
hydrate
You're forgetting
redeems.
what people are like.
But it's just...
Oh, bloody hell!
Everyone okay?
Uh-oh, we're getting
Marco.
Titanic right now.
Guys better get up here.
What do we hit?
Hell if I know.
Are we about to go all CIA and start a waterboarding session? No, not again! Not again! Oh,
Sneak,
snap.
get down.
Get down! Oh, wait, that hurts. Holy shit. Okay, what if I didn't
Thanks for the
save him? Would he have been flung off?
Oh, get the jib under control.
Drown a
You
streamer?
just had to take us in close, right into a fucking rock.
Hey,
I've been sailing these
hey,
waters
hey.
for years. There aren't any
You guys know
rocks.
I've been
What the
waterboarded
hell
before.
was that?
Not a fun
Something else.
experience.
Tell yourself, something's going on around here. This place isn't safe anymore, Pete. Your friends are gone, and whatever scared them off is gonna
Pete!
find us next. I told you this was
Oh my
a bad
god, they're
idea.
doing it! They're doing
You're
it!
just being
Hydrate,
paranoid.
hydrate,
It's
hydrate,
not
hydrate!
paranoia,
Hy-
it's your right.
Hydrate!
We're stuck out here, nowhere to go. We shouldn't have been
Hydrate!
wasting our time out
Thank you
here.
for that.
Stop.
Oh my god.
We
Thank you for
need
the
to-
hydrate, thank you!
That's our friend.
She's right. All this talk isn't doing anything to get us out of here.
Thank you for the
That girl on
hydrate,
the
thank
shortwave. What
you!
if she's part of it?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Guys,
chug
pull it
the rest of
together.
my Arizona.
Oh, Sadiq,
I have like half a
get those
can
sails
left.
tied down. Once we're checked for damage,
Thank
we
you for
can
the
haul off.
hydrate, thank you, thank you.
Ease our way out. Go on. Michonne, what exactly did she say?
Empty can, guys. Hold on, I'm gonna
really
burp.
not gonna come? Michonne, take these. See if you can figure out what we got stuck on.
All right.
Just see if we're close to anything. I mean, I need to know what
Thank you
our
for the
options.
redeem. Thank you.
We just need to get
John her
ourselves moving.
waterboard her.
Oh.
And I'm caught up from redeeming. Yeah, you reached the limit. Ooh, look at this.
Yeah, I know. I'm working on it.
I'm gonna talk to Pete.
Whatever we ran into, did a goddamn number on the boat. Damn.
Empty bottle, fine, go drink for the tap for 10 seconds. 10 seconds, 10 seconds is a long time. Here, I have a water bottle. I have a water bottle here. I drink it. Water. Oh my god. Hold on, let me do this first. Look into the distance. With binoculars. Yeah. Mmm. Anything here? No.
Not much to see out there.
You can ask Hovey how I was before he added a cooldown to his hydrate. Oh no, did you spam it on Hovey? Damn. In about 30 minutes, I'll rehydrate. Oh god, I'm scared, Oh, okay, Sadiq. Look at. Hold on, can I talk to this guy? No? Oh, binoculars over here. No, maybe. I know you did. I know you did.
You see anything out there?
The building.
Looks like an old ferry.
Could be worth checking out. You know, extra parts, maybe some food.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Before I talk to this guy, I want to look around first. Plant? Again? Is it?
This should start producing fruit one of these days.
Oh my god, we're doing One Piece right now.
And low rice.
What's your name?
Need to find some food soon.
Thank you for the blurb! Thank you!
Fuck you!
Fuck you! Fuck you! That reminds me of that one video of those two guys throwing each other like the middle finger in the middle of the street. You guys know what video I'm talking about? Am I gonna find a shark? Shark.
There it is. Hey, Pete.
I
Figure
find
out
it
what was
entertaining
stuck
that this
on
is my first chef stream, but I already have 2K channel points.
Damn.
You have 2K channel points
At
already?
least it's not Rashid's boat.
How? Have you been lurking?
Everyone was still on that boat.
FBI, open up!
Sorry. I just seen a lot of bad shit.
Thank you for the blurb, thank you.
I don't want to see this fall apart, you know? I've seen better places than this get torn to
You
shreds.
have no clue.
You have no idea.
Oh my
how
god, not the Italian brain rot.
You've seen
Toon, toon, toon,
The
toon.
rest of us are just living cushy fucking lives like we haven't been through hell to get here. Why do I even talk to you?
Okay. He doesn't like me, I guess. Okay, let's talk to this guy. Help with the sales.
Hey, Michonne, we could use a hand here.
Time to watch porn struggling to find a job streaming. Let's go. How do you know? How do you know?
He's just an optimist.
Oh wait, my title. I
Call it
forgot.
what you like, but we shouldn't be trying to find people.
I forgot that was my title. Oh my
Where
god.
we are.
I'm poor and I'm struggling to find a job.
You think
Like
this is
job
an
hunting is
accident?
so hard.
And wind. Grab it.
Stop
You ever stop
complaining.
complaining, Oak?
Yeah. Yeah, I might. If you and Pete didn't
Maybe
do
I've
so
been
damn
lurking.
much,
I have no
we'd
clue
be
sometimes. Oh my god, you've been
you
lurking.
it all
Should
figured
you
out, don't you?
lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closet,
Thanks.
because I'm gonna lurk you. Haha. Thank you for the bonk. Thank you. Let me look at this.
These things are ancient. No wonder they broke.
What am I supposed to do? Oh my god, the camera movement. Talk to P again.
Find anything?
Saw a ferry. Maroon near the shore.
A ferry. Didn't see a ferry last time I was here.
Very. Can it fly? Oh.
Tiller lever shot. Snapped in two.
The what?
Tiller lever. Connects the wheel to the...
Look, I don't know shit about boats. Just tell me what you need.
Damn, little lady.
Might have what we need to fix this damn thing. Best option.
Thank you for the reading. Thank you. But for you to like me, oh, what about your friends?
What about your
for you to
friends?
like me, I would have to set up
could be out
streaming
there?
stuff, which would
Hopefully
take a while
find
since new
some
PC.
sign
Yeah, new
He
PC,
knew the area better
new
than anyone.
no specs.
He'd know where to
Oh
find
my god, what
the
kind of graphics card did you get?
Let's round up the crew. Michonne and I will scout the ferry, see what we can find.
All right. So we're just
machete?
gonna sit around waiting for you.
You wish. You've got
No,
work
wipe
to
it to my katana.
You didn't answer my question, though.
I have a machete now.
Christ, here we go again.
Guys,
do. You three. Catch the boat, pull her out of here, and lay anchor near the shoreline.
got it.
Don't go anywhere. Stay near the boat and keep her
Am I
safe.
doing this right? Oh, I have to hold it. I was gonna donate the to the poor and jobless, but the minimum dono is 100,000, so never mind. Thank you. The dots is appreciated.
Don't let this turn into a
Good night,
rescue mission.
Chewy. Good night.
Forget his
Thank you
friends,
for
right?
coming by.
Best
We
get
have
the
a good
parts and
day.
get back
Good
here.
night, good evening. Oh,
Pete means well, but you
that's
know
the
what they say
plan.
about good
Make sure you lock your
intentions.
doors,
We'll
lock
get
your
what we need
windows,
and get out.
lock your
That's
closet,
the plan.
cause I'm gonna lurk. Thank you
Come
for
on,
coming
let's get
by. Yeah, I wonder why your poor shit looks at the 100,000 bit redeem.
You ready?
I know. It's okay. I'm fine with being poor, guys. It's so fine. You know, it makes me so happy. You know, it feels great. 4060 for my graphics card. Oh, nice.
Tung
4060
tung
is pretty
tung
good.
tung 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 sahur. Anomali
Tung, tung,
mengerikan
tung,
yang hanya
tung,
keluar
tung,
pada
tung, tung,
sahur.
sahur. Oh god, not the Italian brain rot. I see that video all the time whenever I open up like social media. God, I don't understand it. Like, what makes it a meme? What?
Sure is quiet out here, huh?
No, not you too, Bino.
It's peaceful anyway.
Always a good sign.
Probably
Always
a good sign.
sign.
Trouble usually isn't quiet.
I suppose that makes you the exception. You know, something's really been bothering me, and I have to ask.
What?
Oh, are we gonna kiss?
Do you think this looks dumb?
Oh, what?
I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Oak's been giving me shit about it. Says I look like a pirate.
Why you only
What
have
do you
on one ear?
Be honest.
It's a good
I
look.
wanna know.
What is he now?
You mentioned that one. It was at the top of the trending audio,
knew
so I had
you
to
were
make sure to lose it.
Hypnotized the look to me. You had get you to
You know,
loosen
I
up
said it to
sooner
you
or
before.
later.
You didn't get what I was talking
You're
about.
always so
Really?
serious.
Wait, when did you say it?
It's gotta be exhausting.
You didn't say it to me.
Sure, you have reasons. Just makes
Don't
it hard
test
to
your
get to know
luck.
people.
Don't test
You
your luck.
liar, but you never said it to me before. I would have known.
You know, when we first brought you on board,
Thank
never
you for the
thought you'd decide
redeem.
to stick around.
God, keep
You
throwing
didn't
stuff
talk
at
to
me. I
anybody.
love
I
it.
just assumed you'd take off
Go
the
on.
minute you got
Do
your
it
thing.
again.
Well, I keep expecting to wake up and find this dinghy gone, and you with it. But here you are.
Oh,
Haven't got sick of me yet.
thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I love it. I love it so much.
I'm glad you're here anyway. When we met, you were... I saw what you were about to do.
Oh,
Not
yeah, I was
easy.
gonna shoot myself.
I know you mostly keep it to yourself.
Why'd you stop me?
Why'd you stop me?
Now this is
You
fun.
pulled the gun
This is the
out of
second
my
time I swear we had that conversation and the
Yeah,
evidence is not
Michonne.
there. Because you didn't say it to me.
Yeah,
You didn't say that to me. You liar. You liar.
You know...
You said
all
it to
this
someone
I was
else.
just on my own, like you were. Convinced myself I liked it that way. But after a while, I just...
Oh! In the middle of the ocean?
I know this is a really bad idea.
Oh my god.
It's 2 a.m.
God damn! Not like you with the lady. Thank you for everything. You made me messed up. Oh my god.
Right. Astronauts.
Oh my god, I got distracted.
Ooh, this
Oh my
is
god.
boring. Couldn't help but notice Gilbert come across the floor. That's really naturally what you do. Go back the espresso, baby. You so much
Oh, he's dead. He's so dead. He's so dead. Am I dead? No. How deep is the ocean? It looks so shallow.
Hey, I got a little itch. You think you can help me? Only
my God.
7 inches long. Please stop me.
Is it bull flip? Why is it so dark? Oh my god. Thank you for the release. I hate you. Get up, Michonne, get up! Fuck the fool, get up!
Grab my hand.
I would have died there because I kissed him. Should this say end game? Clip it and send it to her family. No.
Guess I should have kept my mouth shut, huh?
Is this POTC?
Can't believe it.
What is POTC? Oh,
Jesus.
could have been a lot worse.
That could have been a lot worse, you know.
Yeah. I know.
POTC, these nuts in your face. Thank you. Thank you. That made me so happy. Wow.
I don't like this. Might be someone who can tell us where everyone went. There's no sign of anyone. Just those fucking crows.
Probably
They're
dead.
probably all dead, Pete.
You always
Keep
expect the
eating.
worst, don't you? Well, unless we can find another
I'm eating
boat.
chicken
Looks like we're
nuggets
stuck
and
here.
fries.
Looks abandoned. Doesn't mean it is, though.
We get
We'll
creative.
figure something out.
Glad
This is
you're
my
feeling
first
so
meal of the
optimistic.
day. Chicken nuggets
Looks like
and
there's 2 ways
fries.
in. The ladder or the window.
What the hell is that? Oh, these are crabs. Blue shell crabs? Oh, yum. Oh my god, free food. Climb ladder into window. Should I go through the window or look at this? Hungry? Hungry
This
goats?
patch has been
Yeah, I'm
welded
very
up.
hungry. You want some?
Fresh work.
Say ah. Say ah. Mob Jack.
That girl said the name Margie. I wonder if this is what she was talking about.
Nom 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 nom. Here comes the plane, Impy. Ooh, look at the walkers.
Those walkers aren't gonna stay put for long. We need to get going.
We need to get going. We need to get going. I'll be in the towers. That's insane. That's crazy. This Australian man. Wow. Making a joke like that. Broken window. Okay. Okay, I want to go to the ladder. Let's do the ladder.
All right. Let's hope this thing holds. Come on.
Am I gonna
Don't
fall?
fall.
Thanks.
It's held by duct tape. What the hell? What the helly? What the hell on? Oh!
Michonne.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Maybe I should have went through the window, no? High ground is better though. Right? Safer? Grab his freaking hand! Oh my god. Grab his freaking hand. Tung, 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 tung. Oh. We have a map? Crow?
Seems like this place was someone's home for a while.
Do you think your friends came through here?
Crow!
It's hard to be sure.
Crow!
We should look around.
Why does she keep looking at the birds? Zombies?
Maybe
Gnarly.
we'll find something
Chicken
down
nuggets?
there.
Gnarly.
We'll have to go through the cafe to get to the stairs.
You're
Talking
just
to
looking
Twitch
for Mr.
chats?
Honeybar.
Gnarly.
Always.
The door? Okay. To open the door. Bench? Bench?
This place
Oh,
isn't in great
God.
shape.
Who fat ass broke the bench? Oh my god, somebody has a big juicy ass. Broke the goddamn bench. This door. Raft locker? This?
Nothing but a hunk of old metal.
Take that! Take that! Weapon? No? Here's the pipe. Pick it up.
Locked.
Cool.
If one of us can get our hand through here, maybe we can unlock it.
Oh, not my hand. Machete? Reboy, reboy.
Nice.
Okay. Bird. Duck. Where's the goose? Okay, back out.
I don't see anything. Doesn't mean there's nothing there, though.
The question is, which one of us wants to reach in there to open it?
Oh,
One of
how
us
about
has to do
you?
it, right?
Go ahead, Pete.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready for this.
He's gonna get pulled, huh? I can already see it coming.
Almost got it. Just
Chop his arm off! Oh. I'm rolling my eyes. I'm rolling my eyes.
you should see your face.
Imagine you stuck your hand in there, there's a zombies right there. Exactly, right? Hilarious.
Hilarious, Pete.
Hilarious. So funny. You're so funny,
I got you
Pete.
going for a moment.
It'd be funnier if I chopped your
And the
arm
nuts while you're at
off. Just to be safe.
it. God. Oh,
Need
something's
some help,
blocking it.
Pete.
Yeah, help me, Pete.
Ready when you are.
Oh. Oh, yuck. Thank you for the bonk. Thank you. Welcome in, Nico. Meow. Welcome. Ohayo gozaimasu. How are you? Have they tried pulling? Thank you for the read. Thank you. No, I don't think I will.
Oh God.
They're dead. They're dead. They got tied up. Wait.
These aren't your friends.
No.
Oh wait, that's not them.
They don't look like walkers. Wonder what happened to them.
Uh-oh.
Your wrists are zip-tied. You couldn't fight back.
Bullet wound?
Whoever did this made sure they wouldn't come back. These people hadn't turned. They were
planned.
executed.
Jesus.
Oh my god.
Shit.
You guys know the other day when did I watch it? The other day I started watching Devil May Cry. Right, the anime on Netflix. And oh my god, the voice actor for Dante is the same voice actor as James.
They left this behind.
Is his name James? James, the guy in The Walking Dead? The freaking kid who wore the zombie mask? Same voice actor.
You've got that look. Same look you had when
I realized when I was watching
I
it.
haven't seen it in a while.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
You don't look fine.
Oh my god, I hated James too. And then I was when I was watching Devil May Cry, I was like, wait, why do I hate the sound of that voice? Turns out it's the same voice actor.
They wouldn't have left this on purpose. I gotta hope they're still alive. They made it off this thing.
Oh. Investigate. I'm gonna get jumped, huh? I'm gonna get jumped. Holy shit, there's a pile of them. Shan just... Yeah, I hated him! Okay, it was like triggering me. Huh? Tied up?
If we're gonna find anything in this boat, it'll be in here.
Look at... Kill Walker? Look at a Walker?
Keep the horror.
Jesus.
Horror.
Oh my god!
Why do I say
And left him to be eaten.
Oh my god! My automatic shout out play works. Oh my god. Welcome in, John. Welcome. How are you? How was your stream? How was your karaoke? What a clip to show.
Stand.
E.
Let him down.
Hello. Cut it down. Bro, I flopped around the room like a fish. You flopped what? Like a fish? What do you mean? What did you sing? What was your favorite song in karaoke?
What we saw up there, the execution of those people, what was done to that poor man. Who the fuck could have done that? It wasn't war. It wasn't even self-defense.
Just keep looking for people.
Focus on finding the girl. Then we can worry about who did this.
You're right.
I don't know. I was
Hold
moving
up.
a lot.
don't know what's
I
in
see. Hope you had fun. Also, thank you for the light, Crimson. Thank you. I won't die, I swear. Not today. I don't die. I just get other people dead.
What do you see?
Oh, a duffel bag.
There's a duffel bag. Looks like it's in good shape.
Any sign of people?
Oh, I don't see
I
anyone.
don't see anyone.
Wait, there's a store in the middle of a boat? Wait, is this a boat? Oh no, this is a ferry. Never mind.
Someone scavenged everything else but left this. Makes no sense.
Maybe they're
No,
coming
damn.
back to get it.
We could really use this stuff.
No, Clementine says stealing is bad.
Bunch of medicine.
Where'd all this stuff come from?
Hmm?
Plenty of ammunition. Cigarettes.
Don't show those to Berto. We finally just got him to quit.
Oh
Food.
my god. Mary Lily's peaches and beans. God, I used to have these 3 times a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Drove my mom crazy. We should see what else we can find.
Okay. I have a feeling if I open this locker, it's gonna be something inside. Oh, never
Anything?
mind. Logan. Empty? Can I open that? Register?
Money's still here.
No use to anyone now.
Okay, before I open the door, vending machine?
You think candy bars are just gonna magically pour out of there?
Well,
Hey,
you
never
never
hurts to
know. Yeah. Pete. God. Wait, I can kick it again. What if I do it again? 3 times the charm? Wait! Oh my god, see? I knew it! Prove you wrong, Pete. Jar of candies. Put in duffel?
Haven't had one of those in years.
Are these
said
the
that was
caramel
gonna
candies? Okay. Oh. Freaking Minecraft zombie. Oh, what's this? Fruit beverage?
Never know when you're gonna find another
Think
one
of the
of these.
blurb, thank you. Oh. Wait, that locker says Logan. Open locker.
Oh shit.
Back up!
Oh,
Back up!
back up! You back up!
Greg! What's going on?
Easy.
Who the hell are
Easy.
you people?
Who are you?
Look,
They're
kid, just-
kids.
Tell me! Now!
I'm Michonne. This is
I'm
Pete.
Michonne, and that's Pete.
We're just passing through.
Yeah, sure you are. That bag belongs to us. So step aside, alright?
Uh-oh. We're not gonna take it. We're just looking for people.
Don't be stupid. I don't want to do this, but we need that stuff. So just back
You can have it.
Take it. It's yours.
Uh-oh, he's gonna die. Oh.
Hold on.
Okay, Michonne, you didn't have to do that goddamn spin. EQ. Holy! Okay. E. Holy! Damn! I killed like how many? How many zombies? He killed one. Cash in. Damn.
Stop her!
Oh, let her go. Oh.
Hey, stay put.
Oh my god. Common enemy?
Shit.
Looks like you caught our thieves. Nice job. You. Man, you gotta be kidding me.
Who are you?
And you've got help this time. Interesting.
What's going
Thought
on?
you were a solo act.
What the hell is going on?
Don't play dumb.
This is a misunderstanding.
I'm not with her.
Damn. I know Sam here didn't do all this. Get them all onto the boat. Be careful. These new ones aren't fucking around.
Uh-oh.
We'll take them to Norma.
Norma?
They try anything. Shoot them.
Wait, we're getting zip-tied. Like the people we saw. Dead. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Are they gonna kill me now? Shoot me in the head.
Let's see. 2 canteens, a lighter, pocket knife, machete.
Any bites, rashes, coughing?
No, they're clean.
You know we're gonna need those weapons back.
Don't worry. You'll get them back. Once we've cleared all this
Bullshit.
up. Watch it, girl. You're in deep enough already. You know, if I had my way, I'd just dump you over the side. See how well you swim with your hands tied behind your back.
Guy might talk to me.
Okay, what kind of blindfolds are these that I could just literally see through them?
Seem like the most
Because, oh, I'll do the talking.
worth the shot.
Let me do the talking.
Hey, cut the chatter. You speak when spoken to, understand?
Woof woof.
All right. You. Let's start with you. What's your name?
My name?
Okay.
Your
Tell
mom?
me.
Oh.
My
Michonne.
name's Michonne.
Randall. Now that the pleasantries are behind us, let's talk about what you did.
We didn't take anything from you.
Shut your mouth.
What I did?
I'm talking to your cohorts.
I'm not with her.
Bet we're not the only ones you've stolen from.
I didn't steal
I
from
stole
you.
shit from you.
Then you've got nothing to worry about. Let's
Do you
see.
just make the no who sound?
Nice
Who?
machete.
No? No?
You handle those walkers.
I don't
back
think so. I did the
How are you
woof
gonna get
woof.
something that can actually fight back?
I was trying to like woof,
Plenty
you know,
sharp.
like a dog.
Take good care of this blade.
Let me show you.
Untie me, and I'll show you.
Weapon like this, you gotta be comfortable getting in close. Getting messy. You
Damn.
know, every person we find
Woo.
living,
Woo.
they got some dead with it. Who was it for you? Mother? father? A couple sisters, maybe? Not kids.
Oh.
You? Oh, man. I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. So you got nothing left to lose. No wonder you're all stoic and shit.
Oh, spit in his face.
Hell, we all lose people.
Achoo.
Ooh, I hit a nerve. Don't feel bad. I'm a lot like you. No shame in that.
Oh, are you gonna kiss now?
Look at that. Here we are. Monroe. Doubt you got a good look last time you were here. Too busy stealing from us to appreciate our little community.
I didn't steal from you. I
Never
told
gave them a
you.
second thought.
I've never been
Folks
here
you
before.
fucked over,
We haven't been here before.
save it for Norma. My sister.
You just don't
is the one in
listen.
charge here. She'll be just thrilled to see you.
Zachary, thank God.
Oh, are they kissing?
I'm fine, Jonas.
Oh my god, BL.
I'm fine.
Here, found your missing medicine.
Thanks. I'll get this back to the sick bay.
Hey, your job's not done yet.
Come on. Randall, what's all this? I hope I'd never see you again, Samantha.
Norma,
Not a word. Not from
Samantha.
Found them on the ferry, along with this. That one there. Michonne? She's the one to watch out for.
Did he just wink at me?
that true?
Oh my god, are you flirting with me?
Dangerous.
You don't believe me? I've never been wrong about something like this.
Got nothing
I
against
think
you.
she's more than capable of speaking for herself, Randall.
I got nothing against you people.
Good. That'll make this easy.
You're
Randall, escort these
flirting.
ladies to the storeroom.
Okay, I can't tell if these
somewhere
people are
comfortable
bad
for
or
the other
good.
two.
What? That's my brother.
I feel like
Come on.
they're bad people, but then they seem like such a collective, like
You got this under control.
good people, you know?
Sam! Greg, you'll be okay.
Get moving.
Hmm. No, am I gonna get thrown in the basement again?
Where are they taking Pete?
Don't you worry about him.
What about Greg?
Looks a bit empty, doesn't it? Like something's missing. Luckily, my sister's good at getting answers. She'll find out what you did with the
They're
rest.
bad people.
And if she doesn't,
Are they gonna torture me
the
now?
two of us are gonna have ourselves a talk.
I'm not gonna let you do this.
Keep an eye on her. She's got a knack for starting trouble. Anything goes down and I'm blaming you.
I love trouble.
Trust me.
Maybe
What's
our letter
this
caused
tension
trouble.
between us? What is this?
You're stuck
Enemies
with
to
the
lovers?
And I'm pretty sure you
Oh my god. Ask them
I'd
bad
say make
guys
yourself
say they're good. Good guys don't know.
probably not gonna happen.
Oh, actually?
We've got to get out of here. They're gonna hurt Greg. These people. You don't know what they're capable of.
What about Pete
I'm
too?
worried about Pete too, okay?
Should have never involved my brother in this, and now you.
Can she like
Who
tell
knows what
me
they're gonna do to him?
what happened?
Is Norma right? Did you steal those supplies?
Well, I didn't steal the duffel bag, if that's what you're asking. This is my fault. So sorry. I was just trying to protect my family. That's all. I never thought they'd go back to the ferry. I didn't know. It's not gonna be okay.
What the hell is going on here?
I just wanted to use the radio to reach people. I never expected that Randall will show up there. Not after...
After what? Don't go quiet on me!
Ties are too tight. You see anything we can cut him with? Anything with a sharp edge.
Sharp edge? Sharp edge? Duffel bag?
This used to be full?
How should I know?
You were here before?
Never
I feel
dealt
like
with
she's
the
like
radio.
hiding stuff from me.
Someone really loves their cigs. Same brand that was in the duffel. Mob Jack, like the ferry. These must have come from there.
Sharp object? Sharp object? Talk to Sam. Wait, I saw something here. Oh, wait here.
One of the Mob Jack's first aid kits. This is why there was nothing left on that ferry. It's all here.
Propane? Oh,
Grumble
wait, do you know that? Michonne? Wait, I can't talk to her no more. What am I looking at? Oh my god! This scared me! What the heck?
What's going on?
He's going crazy!
Do you need help?
Leave me alone.
Just leave me alone.
Thank you for the sub. Thank you for the sub. Thank you so much
I
for the
didn't mean to
sub.
cry.
Chaos! Welcome in, welcome. Thank you for the 19th month. Oh my god, 19 months. Holy. How are you? How's your day?
Come on.
What do you want me to do,
I
man?
need you to tell me the truth.
You saw those bodies back at the ferry? That was another group. We traded with them sometimes. Randall killed them all. Everyone.
Holy damn.
Even the kids. Came with his whole crew.
You saw it
And he
yourself?
just murdered them.
How do you know? Did you see it happen?
We were on a supply run. We heard gunshots and screams.
It goes well?
We tried to look for
Happy stream?
survivors, but
Stream goes good. Stream goes good. We're playing as Michonne right now.
That's why this stuff
So
is
far,
in-
Michonne
that's what they do.
killed
They think
zombies.
they own everything on the
She's
water.
getting haunted by
Whatever
her
they
dead
find, they take,
kids.
and if you put up a
Oh,
fight,
she got kidnapped and framed,
you know what
and
happens.
we got locked in the basement.
They just
I
It's
saw what
nothing
Randall
to them.
did.
I saw what Randall did.
Now do you get it? If there's anyone out there that you care about, don't tell these people a thing. Someone's coming back.
I figure you'd be happy about dead kids. Yeah, when they're dead, but if they keep coming and hunting me, you know, it's like,
We have to get out
come
of
on.
here.
Just be gone.
Think about what you're doing. We need a plan.
This is my plan.
Your fault, my fault. What do you mean my fault? I didn't kill them. I mean, did I kill them? I think I killed them. I mean, actually, I don't know. We didn't learn a lot of about like Michonne's lore yet. All we know that her kids are dead.
We jump them. We can do this together. It's now or never.
Where's the shot?
Worth a shot. Let's do it.
Oh, it's him again.
Quiet down here. Here I was, ready for a fight. Nice work. Kept it together.
He's gonna kiss me! Oh my god. Oh! Oh no! Oh. Oh.
I knew you were dangerous. Come on. Norma wants a word.
How did she get knocked out like that? Girl! Girly! Oh my god. She wanted to do that and she ends up on the floor.
So, Michonne.
I don't know, I felt the slap on that one girl was the slap on Sarah.
That's a great name. Norma? I always wanted to be a Veronica or Gwendolyn when I was a girl, but I've made my peace with it, I suppose. You're lucky, though. You got a name people remember.
Norma.
Michonne. Damn, that's good.
Get to the point.
Nice, strong name.
Can you get to the point?
I'm sorry about all this, but I just want to talk, that's all.
Then you mind taking these off?
Sure, once I get to know you better.
Oh,
I know
she wants
you're
to get
angry,
to know me
but
better.
try to consider things from my perspective. Everything points to you stealing from me, from my people. That puts you and I on opposite sides of the fence. If that's not how you see it, enlighten me. Help me understand.
I don't even know who you people are.
If all goes well, I'd be happy to remove them for you.
You got the wrong people.
You got the wrong people. We didn't take shit from you.
Randall believes otherwise, but that doesn't mean I think you're guilty just yet. You're gonna help me get to the bottom of things.
What?
You do that, and you get to go home. Go on.
Wow, they're on a
Consider it
boat
a
and she's
peace
using
offering.
plastic straws. Isn't
You
that
and I are gonna come to an understanding.
refuse? I'm not gonna drink anything. I'm
thanks.
sorry.
That's too bad.
Isn't that gonna kill like the sea
Can't say I
turtles?
didn't try to be nice.
Plastic straws
tell
in
me,
the ocean?
You and Samantha,
Excuse me.
how long you all been together? Haven't seen you before, but then you might have been
We only
lying
just
low.
met.
I just met Sam today.
Really? And what brought you to that ferry? Seems awfully strange you just stumble on it, out there in the
I'm
middle
telling
of the
the
water.
truth.
It's just a little difficult to wrap my head around.
We heard
You
a
all
radio
ended up there
signal.
together.
Pete and I picked up a signal on the shortwave. It was coming from the ferry.
Hey, Zachary.
I don't know. Would the few
Yeah.
survivors using
Get
plastic
Janie to
affect
take
global
the crew on down to
wildlife?
the mob jack. See if anyone else picked up on this.
I don't
signal.
know.
Bring anyone they
There'll be
find
more
back here.
food. Technically, right? If we help
They
save
need
the
help,
turtles,
We'll take care of them.
right?
So how about your group? Are there others? I need to know who's with you. Can't act on
There are more of
incomplete
us.
information.
She's gonna
Yeah,
read
I
us. Oh my god!
Figured as much.
Oh my god! Welcome in, Bento. Welcome. Hi,
Don't run into that
hi.
many small groups
How you doing? Well,
these days.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Maybe I haven't been clear.
How are you? How was your
The
day?
only reason you're still sitting here is because I've decided to let you tell me your side of things. I suggest you
God.
stop fucking around.
I'm telling you the
Otherwise, this is gonna
truth.
stop being
I'm
so
telling the
pleasant.
truth.
I'm telling you what I know.
I have a
The
hard
reason
time
plastic is
believing
an
it.
issue right now is because there are millions, if not billions, of people contributing to the waster. Oh god, you know a lot, Chaos.
Look, I don't mean to lose my time.
I mean, that is true.
From your
True,
side,
true.
I'm sure this looks bad. I get
I mean, okay, if you
There's
can
more
bring
to
news
this than
plastic
you
straws, it's not like
realize.
they're gonna throw it away, right? All day?
Since you just met, there's something you should know about Samantha. That girl is a natural-born liar. She's good. I'll bet she laid it on thick for you. Said it was all her fault. She's sorry, and won't you please
Oh
help
my
her
God.
escape big
She did do
bad
that.
Norma? Am I getting warm?
Hey, she did
Wouldn't be
do
the
that.
first time she fed that line to somebody.
You nailed it.
Yeah. She said something like that.
Thank
See?
you, thank you.
I knew she would.
Glad to hear it. I've been doing a
She's
little
lied
sprinkling,
to
so
us
it's been
before.
okay. Oh,
Stolen
nice,
from us before.
nice.
You can
I also
see
need
why
to
I
do
might be
some
just a tad
spring cleaning
frustrated.
as well.
I mean, I let her go.
God,
No
it's so-
consequences.
I'm not
And
saying
now
my
she's
room is
stealing
dirty and
from me
stinky,
again.
but like,
How am I supposed to feel about that?
it's a little messy.
There's a
I need to
fine
clean my
line
PC too. It's like
between
super
being
dusty in
generous
there.
and being taken advantage of. Everyone deserves a second chance. I believe that, but never a third.
That's not knowing a lot. That's just logic.
Most people will take advantage if you let them.
What about the people on the
What
ferry?
about those people on the ferry? Children, whole families, executed. How many chances did they get?
No, we didn't do that. Scavengers killed those children, their families, everyone. Then they took over. So Randall went down there, gave those murderers justice, made sure they'd never kill again.
I don't know who to
That's what we do
trust.
here,
I don't know who to
protect people.
trust. I
bring
feel like they're
folks in,
good
see
people.
that they're fed, clothed,
then-
looked after.
What about what you
Maybe
take
I'm
from
getting gaslit here.
the salvage?
Am I
We need the
gullible
same
enough to
things
believe them?
anybody does. We pool our resources, we survive. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Wait, they have a big community though.
No more beating around the bush. Where's the rest of it?
What?
You say you weren't with those kids, but Randall caught you with them. You had this, but there's still much more missing.
I
So,
literally just met the
where is the rest
kids.
of it? Bullets and ammunition, handguns, and a couple of rifles.
Probably on the ferry.
All missing.
It's probably on the ferry.
Zachary and Cam already
Oh
did
my
a sweep
god,
of the
am I
ferry,
gonna
and they didn't find a
God.
thing.
Uh-oh,
Where
stinky.
is it? I told
But they have to have with it.
Bring in the kid.
True.
What are you
Do
Bring
it.
it. Jesus. Yeah, I have a little like
Here's how this
Megami
goes.
figure like in
I
my
know he's not
PC,
gonna talk to
and
me.
like
His
earlier
sister's
today I
probably
noticed
filled
that he
his
wasn't there
head with
anymore.
all kinds of stories.
Like you can see
So
the
you'll be
little
asking the
hole
questions.
that he was standing on top,
What
like
you
surrounded
doing?
by dust. And I was looking for him. Turns out he fell down from my PC. Or like inside, he fell down from the platform into like a pile of
Greg, is
dust.
it? We're just gonna do a little fact check, Greg. See if
I
your
have to
story
clean him.
squares up.
There's no way I'm talking to you after what your brother did.
Damn.
Shit, Randall.
Fuck you.
You want another one?
And Dad, just talked to my mom. You died. Oh, not yet, not yet.
Michonne,
Oh my god, my favorite
mind
goat
asking Greg
VTuber
what I asked
is
you?
live.
Go on
Welcome
now.
in, Toshi. Welcome.
Ask him.
Comply,
How
comply.
long have we been together?
Long time. We're old family friends.
What? Freaking
That's not
liar.
how Michonne told it. She said you just met.
Someone's full of shit.
He's
The kid made a
mistaken.
mistake.
He did. He lied to my face.
Oh my god, he's a freaking liar. Oh my god. Also, I'm doing great, Toshi. How are you? How are you? How was your day?
Michonne, the one about your people.
Lamont dust pile is crazy, but I feel
Don't
that.
you?
Yeah. Dust pile. You ask him?
Ask him yourself.
How many of you are there?
I have no clue who that kid is.
It's
I don't
just
even know
us.
his name.
Us four.
Well, that's disappointing. She said there were more of you.
Wait, they're gonna kill him right in front of me?
Please, I'll tell you whatever you
Put the gun down!
Put down the fucking gun.
Yeah?
Holy damn.
You look real threatening over
Damn
there
demon,
tied
but
to
still
that chair.
pink. Oh dude, my redeems, what do you mean my redeems?
Randall,
What do you
think you
mean?
made
They're kind of, my redeems are kind of messy.
Get a
so,
towel,
you know,
Zachary.
don't worry about
Leave
them.
him alone, okay?
Don't worry
It's
about
just
them,
a kid.
okay?
Throw him a pity party when we're done. Get the fucking towel.
The towel.
He lying again? Try to be kind. Try to extend my goddamn hospitality.
I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything.
And this is the thanks I get.
Oof.
God damn it! For fuck's sake, Randall.
Oh my god. I unredeemed pink hair so I could see long black hair, but instead I get short black hair.
Get what you want this way.
Okay, you have to redeem the long hair. The long hair one first. Okay?
always do.
You have to redeem the long hair
You're not
one
gonna get in
first
line
in
by
order to
being
get the
soft.
long black hair.
Now, being smart
Yes,
isn't the same as being
but
soft, Randall.
It's a little
We're
bit
not gonna get
confusing.
what we need,
But
Jordan.
if I have pink
Zachary
hair,
and I will
it
figure
doesn't
this
turn
out.
black. It only
You
turns
go
my
below
eyes
and get the
red.
other fellow.
But if you want to see pink hair to
You
a
make
pink
quite
hair
the
to
pair of
black
liars.
long hair, you have to
You'll just
unredeem the pink hair and redeem the
Zachary,
black
a
the
word
long hair. You get what I mean? It's all confusing, you know. It's yeah.
Are you okay? What do you think? Are they done with us? Or is it gonna get worse?
Oof.
This is...
Keep your shit together.
It's gonna get worse.
Keep it together, Greg.
What do you think I'm doing? Even if it didn't look like it. I can't believe I pissed myself. Seriously. My little brothers can see me now.
Oh my god, you pissed yourself.
I've never done that before.
Damn it, I want my long
Never.
black hair.
I've just never been so scared.
It's like algebra.
I'm not like that.
It's like algebra.
Afraid.
You gotta get this hair to get that hair to get this color. Exactly. Oh my god, wait, I forgot to
always
pick.
thought I'd be stronger.
It's a little confusing, okay,
knew about the
guys?
robbers,
You
and
know,
I
it's a
fought
little
them
bit
before I killed them.
confusing.
It's bad. But people are worse, aren't they? I didn't know it was this bad. They know what they're doing. They just don't care.
Never trust anyone or
People,
anything.
walkers, makes no difference. You want to
It cost me 2K now. Now can we do the ooh rap?
No one else.
Good.
Sounds like a fun life.
Good. So Chaos
Someone's
already
right.
played it like
I saved
earlier.
them. They did good.
Wait, was it Chaos? Oh,
family.
Empy. Empy
They're the
played it
only reason.
earlier. You missed it.
What if you don't even...
You know, Auntie.
I left them behind. My daughters. I didn't know.
What do you mean you didn't know,
You lie to
Michonne?
yourself to live, so you keep going.
Shan explaining
Stop.
is Charles Day white boy meme. What is? I don't know what that means.
So,
I said an opportunity to no, do
Just
not,
ask questions.
don't you dare abuse your mod powers. Okay, instant a mod.
Hey, Sam?
I haven't seen it. Shit. How are we playing this?
Shit.
Yeah, Michonne. How are we playing this? I'm all ears.
Oh, his nose.
Any day now. Really.
I'll get us out of
I'll
this.
get us out of this.
And I just cannot wait to see how you do that.
Take care of this.
Come on.
What are you gonna do with me?
Zachary?
I just have a few questions.
Oh my god. I only abuse it when it's funny. Yeah, whenever I get like a big raid of new people, Chaos always he always play it. Well, what a great first impression, huh? God. They see Shan's dream, they're like, oh my god, that's the extra nozzle pounces on you, girl.
What the hell? Jonas! Haven't you got a patient that needs you? No, you can't just barge in here.
Okay.
See, not everyone.
That's what I'm planning to. It's the perfect intro to new people. Gotta get
good doctor.
Hey, it's embarrassing, okay? It's
So
embarrassing.
what is it you do, Zachary? Huh? Besides fuck Jonas.
Hey, yo.
Okay, fine, Randall,
That's
let's
right.
just...
You do nothing. You cower and you whine because
Get this
you don't
over
have the
with.
balls to do things that need doing around here.
Can we just get this over with?
What? You feeling sorry for this waste of space?
Look, whatever you're gonna do, Randall...
No, I'm not gonna do shit. Your fucking uselessness stops now. Time to earn
Damn.
your keep.
Wait,
Here,
oh.
go on. Get them talking.
Damn. To make it the twink do it. To make it the twink do it.
Where are the rest of the supplies? The bags with the ammo!
Hey, shouldn't keep your finger on the trigger.
Don't tell me how to hold a fucking gun!
I don't know, Zachary. Maybe she does know better than you.
Don't be like
No
Randall.
one has to get hurt here.
Just because Randall's an asshole doesn't mean you have to be.
Hey, you gonna take that, Zachary?
Oh god.
Like him.
It's you're cute when you're
She's
embarrassed.
taking you very serious.
No, you're cute when you're embarrassed.
Education.
Jesus.
That's it. Careful. Get too close to her now.
Embarrassing, yeah, you're considering it. Hey, I want clout. What can I say?
Okay.
Just take a deep breath, okay? Talk to us.
I'll stay calm.
You know, I keep saying I'm gonna upload it to YouTube, but it's been like a year now and I still haven't.
You want answers?
What the heck is this? Crimson!
Stop!
Hit that bitch, Mr. Ubu!
Sam!
Greg, don't!
Tell Randall to leave!
Tell Randall to leave. Then we can talk all you want, okay?
Last chance, Zachary. Fucking do something.
Oh my god, he's gonna shoot Randall! He's gonna shoot Randall! Shoot Randall! He's gonna shoot Randall! Oh.
Damn it, Zachary. Now who's taking things too far?
I did.
Outside now.
What do you mean? You gave him the gun! You gave him the gun!
Oh, Greg.
What did you expect? You gave the little shaking twink a gun. You don't expect it to shoot. Oh my god.
Sam.
Oh, God. Greg.
Okay, zip tie, cause zip ties.
Greg! Oh, shit.
Lay him down, lay him down.
Can't reach him.
Oh god. Okay, is it good? Okay. Okay. Oh my god. What the fuck is my mouse? Okay.
Please.
We need to lay him down.
God. Do it so I can play while driving? God, God,
I'll find
no.
something to stop the bleeding.
It's going to be okay, Greg.
I don't think it is.
Don't say
Oh,
that.
no. Damn. I won't do it then.
Oh, please.
New
We gotta
shirts?
stop. Come on, Greg. Come on, don't do this. Please, don't do this. Think of Alex. You're his hero. What will he do without you?
Not a very good hero.
No, you are. You
God.
are, Greg. Please
Oh my
say
god.
more.
It would be cool, what do you mean? Twink L shooting. Twink L. That's funny. How I wounded him so far. That's so rude! Crimson, that's so rude. Our listener is empty.
He's gonna become one of them.
Oh. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry, Sam.
Why is Twink censored? Is it censored?
I'm gonna need your help.
I can't. I just need another second, please.
Girl, get your ass up! Don't cry!
Oh, yeah.
We have to kill him.
Greg.
We need to take care of this. End it.
I can't. I just need more time.
Oh god. Oh god. Crazy? You won't believe this, but I was crazy. I was crazy once. They locked me in a room. A rubber room.
I'm so sorry.
Sheesh! 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 Oh my god. Yeah, I was about to say I love crazy, but never mind then. Crazy? I was crazy once. They locked me in a room. A rubber room. A rubber room full of rats. And rats makes me crazy. Get his gun! Get his gun! Pick it up! Oh, she's gonna shoot him.
What happened to him?
You fucking shot him.
I didn't mean
What do you mean? What happened to him?
You killed him.
It was an accident. I swear, okay? I swear.
Should I make her?
Lower. Please lower the gun.
Put the gun
explain
down.
everything.
Let's hear him out. Let's hear him out.
Why? He's a murderer.
Oh god.
Please.
I like how Shan got better at Seguro by me not being there. For once she felt good. Hey, I was locked in, okay? I was locked in.
I mean it, Michonne. This bastard
Stop her, stop her.
my brother.
Oh no. You better not shoot me. You better not shoot me. You better not shoot me. What was his name? Zachary? God. She even managed to ignore the overwrap during the fight. Hey, I was locked in, okay? I was determined. Okay, I was determined to get past the freaking Genichiro, okay? God, you know, I'm actually surprised I beat him in like an hour. I thought I was gonna be there for like at least 2 hours. Do. Next time on The Walking Dead, Michonne.
We all got demons, honey. And I seen some fucked up shit in my time. But you're a whole different animal.
Who am I carrying? Oh,
Caged
her?
up, just itching to get out. I see.
But you did it! Exactly, right?
You're a killer.
We saved her? I didn't really like her though.
That's what you do.
You don't know.
Stream for an hour only to not go back the next day? Okay, I got really busy, guys. Like this whole entire week. Hold on. Well, let me start the next... Let me start the next episode while the... What is it? The beginning plays. The recap, I'll be back. How long the rest of your life? No leave? I'll be back in like, I don't know, like 20 seconds. BRB!
Listen. You hear it, right? Sounds like a woman's voice.
Hello? Hello, is anyone there? We need some help.
What do we hit?
hell if I know? I can't see a damn thing.
Berto, hold the wheel steady.
Who the hell are you people? Randall!
Looks like you caught our thieves. Nice job. You know, every person we find living, they got some dead with. Who was it for you, I wonder?
Okay, guys, I'm back.
Your fucking uselessness stops now.
Welcome in with Quiet B. Welcome, welcome. How are you? WEBTOON. Hi. Nani ga suki? Chocolate. Yori wa anata. Oh my god. Get that out of my head. Get that out of my head. Get that out of my head. My goodness.
I didn't mean to. Do you think that matters?
God, that line is like drug to me. Thank you for the follow. Thank you. So welcome in. How are you? Oh, hold on. I'll be right back again.
Please. Let me help you. Okay, I screwed up. Randall should be the one laying there. Not your brother.
Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Okay, back. Well, like the
What I did.
WEBTOON.
can help.
Hi.
I owe
Nani ga suki?
Both of you.
Help us
You wanna
escape.
help? Start by getting us the fuck out of here.
Not gonna be.
That got
easy,
stuck in
but
my head this
I'll
week,
do what I can.
really.
Okay, is he still breathing?
God. When I first found it, I fell in love.
I thought you'd have more time.
What do you mean? Oh no.
Jonas, listen. I said.
I don't want to.
escape.
You wanted me to say
really
that
need
one? God. Damn, Shen. Getting tricked
Okay.
once again.
Let's find Kate. Get the hell off this boat.
Thanks, Michonne.
Yeah, they're always.
For stopping me.
They're always touching each
As much
other.
as I wanted to. What he did.
Kill him wouldn't solve anything.
Killing Zachary wasn't the answer here. And it wouldn't have made you feel any better.
I know.
Touch me, touch me, touch me, touch me, touch me!
Thank you for the blame. Thank you. Touch link. God, they're always so touchy. Those are two BL
He's
lovers.
still up there. And he's got company.
Okay, we'll distract the guard, then we're out of here.
Hey, Joe. Can you give me a hand with something?
Can you give me a hand with something? I need a hand job. God, Shen.
I couldn't get anything. Zachary was useless.
People just aren't talking. Yeah. Problem is, we still know nothing about him.
I'll get him.
Get out.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
I have to worry. After last time,
It won't go down like that. I swear.
it can't.
Okay, wait for the red to disappear. Thank you for the bonk. Thank you. Also Shen. Also Mum. Pete. That rope is so loose. Oh my god.
They see me gone. You haven't got a chance of getting out of here.
Hey, Randall!
Oh.
You want to tell me how this happened?
Exactly. He was guarding the door.
Oh.
Samantha put
Shoot
you
her,
up to
shoot her.
this? Where is she?
Shoot her!
Come on.
I just want Pete.
Out with it.
I'm only here for Pete. If you find Sam, you can have her.
I'm not letting any of you go.
Norma, forget about the girl. We can figure this out between us.
I like that. Pete.
I'm at 2.9. I need 0.1 more. 0.1 more. For what?
Sure thing.
Drop the machete.
This can't. This. Don't drop it! Don't drop it! Don't drop it! This channel has been deleted due to inappropriate content. Hey, that was me. Is it me? Is it because of me? I feel like I'm pretty tame here, you know? Affiliate? Oh, affiliate? Nice, mom, nice. Good luck, good luck.
Stay where you are.
Norma!
Oh! Break your ankles. Oh! Just slice his neck right there. Easy kill.
God damn it, Michonne. Always taking the hard road.
You're still alive, aren't you?
For now.
Come on.
Why are you walking so slow? Run!
Alarm! We got trouble.
Is this an attack?
What's happening?
Where are the kids? Prisoners escaped in their arms. Everyone, listen up.
Get down.
Escape to your apartment, please. Stay out of sight. We'll find them soon. You need to spread out.
In here. We're totally screwed. The whole town is looking for us.
We'll figure it out. Michonne?
I'll see if I can find us a ride out of here.
What if my birthday we
Oh,
tip
no,
each
no,
other?
no, no,
What if we just touch tips?
What if we just touch tips?
We lost him.
What do you mean? You want a lightsaber fight?
We might have to fight our way out.
We might have to fight our way out. Oh my god. What am I looking at? Oh, the boat?
There's a boat we can use.
We'll take them out if we have to. Then
Sword fight?
We are not killing you. I'll give myself up.
Pete!
Buys you time to escape and no one dies. And I'll find a way back to you. I can reason with these people.
that'll never work. We
Are you
have
sure
to
about
fight our
this?
way out.
Pete, if you're sure about this?
Don't worry. I got this. I'm doing what's best for my crew. That includes you.
Aye, Captain. Is he the captain? Is he the leader?
You're opening.
Is he the IGL?
We gotta stop him now.
Let him go, let him go.
Hold your fire.
Just want to talk to Norma.
I hope he knows what he's doing.
Come on, we gotta go.
Yeah, he's gonna die. Peace is gonna die.
Just keep on talking, Pete.
All right. Keep your hands up.
Take me
And so
to
we
her.
play like we're playing fist. It's gonna be erect swords.
Hands off! Get
Oh.
him up!
You let him go? Yeah, let him go. I'm not gonna stop him.
You've already stolen our shit. You're
you
not
won't
taking our
shoot
boat
me.
too.
You're not gonna shoot me. I bet Norma wants that privilege.
Maybe I found you with a bullet in the head.
Oh, she got flared. Uh-oh.
Hit it, Michonne. Let's go.
Me in the kitchen, like burning the place down. With Pete! With Pete!
Oh god, he's spreading too fast!
Is Pete dead because we let him go? Oh no. Damn. You know? Okay. He has free will. Should've just gave him abandonment issues. You know what? Womp womp. Coping 100%. You know, I think he'll survive. You know, we saw him in the preview in the last episode. You know, I think he's alive.
We can hide out at my house until it's clear. My dad can help you. It's not far. We'll get there before morning.
Why didn't you mention this before?
Why didn't you mention him before?
I don't want Norma looking for him. I'll tell you more on the way.
What the hell? You have a whole ass family and you went to join these people?
Michonne? Oh god.
Just run! Make a run for it! You can't outrun the walkers! Oh! Who's shooting?
Down! Get to cover! Go!
Distance between us and Norma. Hope the walkers go for them instead.
Oh!
We can lose them in the woods.
How are we gonna do that? It's not like we're just gonna walk through those things.
Oh, the boats? Oh! Oh, she's doing the thing!
Just watch.
Cut off the jaws! Cut off the jaws! Other arm! Other arm!
Hold it down.
Yo, you could have just cut her arm off! No?
Round his head. Hurry! Now we walk. Stay close.
Wouldn't we get shot?
If we don't bump into any of them, we'll be fine.
Go, boy. Are they just terrible shooters? Oh my god, Michonne.
Michonne, what is it?
It's nothing.
Nothing. Let's keep moving. Just keep going.
Michonne, slow down.
Shit.
Oh, why is it not now forward? Why is it the left? Why is it the right direction? Thank you for the flame! Thank you, the kill! Dun, 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 dun.
Just be glad it did.
Clear! Take him down!
In the woods! Move!
Run, run! Gotta go fast. I hate to say it, but I think Pete is dead.
You're not gonna like him.
Oh.
It's not as bad as it looks. I know the way up. This'll work.
You don't think it looks bad?
That's pretty damn bad to me.
Better than going the long way around.
Alright, if you say so.
Craig and I climbed it one by one.
That looks so dangerous.
But I don't think we have time for that. Follow
This
my
looks
lead.
like something that would happen in like Final Destination. You know? Climbing up, oh, my foot slipped, and then I fall down, and that pierced like through my body. What to choose? Okay, this one is rusty. See all the rust on it? I think it's gonna break. So we're gonna go to this one. Oh! Oh! Oh!
You okay?
You B-word! Hell no, I'm not okay!
No, I'm not okay.
Did someone say Pierce? Yeah, Pierce.
I found him! This way!
Oh my god. Don't call them B-words, bro! What? No. Okay, I won't call them B-words. This one. No! I'm gonna die! Oh, he's out of ammo? How do you miss? How do you miss that? Let me ASD. Oh my god. She's gonna kill me. She's gonna get me dead.
Almost there.
Oh! Oh my god. Do I not get hurt? Do I have plot armor? Is this Jump!
Jump!
Jump! Dragon hold? Michonne?
You'll be all right, son. I'm gonna get you home.
Where's your house? Not plot armor? He's just not locked in.
My house is up ahead. We're not far.
Oh. It would take him at least 500 plus to beat Genichiro. Damn, that's worse than me. you think you think he can beat Genichiro with a gun?
And there was just a couple of boats anchored to a pier. They had some supplies just sitting out, and Norma caught me. I didn't think she was going to, but she let me go. And now Greg is dead.
Why did Norma let you go?
Why'd she let you go?
Hell no! He's gonna miss every shot. Genichiro's gonna parry.
And that was enough. This last time, I thought we could just hide the stuff on the ferry. But Greg, he didn't think it was safe. I should have listened.
Wow.
God,
so it was all your fault. It was all her fault. Oh.
Thanks.
You're not looking so good.
I feel even worse.
He's like at least 9th division below Stormtrooper. Every Stormtrooper misses their shots.
Trying not to, but I just want to get home.
Oh, what's your family like?
Your family, what are they like?
You should know me as soon as there's someone that feels guilt.
So I never win any arguments with him. My brothers, James and Alex, they look up to Greg so much. They're gonna be destroyed.
James and Alex.
It's too dangerous out here. Dad was right.
God, I need you to run.
None of us should leave the house. Walkers are trouble. People are worse. I didn't listen.
You knew the risk.
You knew the risk with Norma and you still took your brother.
If we hadn't gotten food, we all would have died. Doesn't mean I don't regret it.
Bro, you need... Okay.
I don't know. How am I supposed to tell my dad about Greg? It's gonna ruin him.
Tell him the
I know
truth.
if I can.
What else? Are you gonna lie to him?
Just give him the truth. He deserves to know what really happened.
You don't know him like I do. After Mom, he isn't a fan of bad news. Made it.
Sam. Sam. Sam, wake up.
Oh no, I did drag a body.
Can't catch a goddamn break.
Hey. You guys know what I'm like remembering right now? Like when I was younger, my brother used to like me. My brother used to do this thing with me where he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna pretend to be dead, and you're gonna drag my body, okay? Just to see like if I could save him, if like he's like unconscious, you know." Everybody's done that before, right? Oh, what the hell? Oh, wait, I thought that was my leg. I have, sure. Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? I was telling my brother, you know, if he's ever like unconscious in the house and there's a fire, he's dead. I'm not dragging his body out. I cannot save him. R.I.P. my brother.
one more step.
Oh.
Sam.
Let me in, let me in.
Is she dead? Did you kill her? Answer me or I'll shoot. I'm not fucking around.
Sam's still alive.
Sam's still alive, but she won't be for long unless you let us in.
Not even gonna try.
Sam?
You slap him awake, but that's about it. Okay. What if I try, but I can't do it, you know?
Everyone. I can't take that risk.
Also, like, what if he's like...
Sam down and leave.
Oh, Sam trusted me.
trusted
What
me
if he's
because
like, you know, he has like a broken leg
How do
or
you think I
something,
found this
you know?
place?
His leg is like chopped off or something. Or like a piece of log, like, crushed his legs.
Not you.
What am I gonna do? I can't do anything. Honestly, I think I could probably drag him out, you know? Just cut off both his legs. That's like... How many pounds is that?
Hurry! She doesn't have much time!
That's like 1/4 of his weight, right? He'll be 1/4 lighter. Put a blanket on the floor and roll him. That's kind of good though.
Sam!
James, Alex, get back! Your sister's hurt!
What's wrong with her? She's bleeding! Sam!
Go get help, okay?
This is bad. This is really, really bad. I need you to find help, okay?
Okay.
You know it's a good Sunday when you think about cutting off your brother's leg.
It's James. Okay, James.
He'll be fine. As long as he lives, right? That's all that matters.
Got it!
Oh, what did I do? Vodka? Hey, yo, give me that.
Sam, I got you. I'm here.
Sterilize wound or give cemetery. Sterilize the wound.
Is the bullet still in there?
Didn't punch through.
Damn, I would have drank that myself.
Right?
There's too much blood.
Too much blood? What is this for? Pliers? What is this for? I don't know what this
You're
for.
gonna have to use this.
Let her breathe? Isn't that supposed to like help her breathe? What the fuck? I'm clicking it, no? Oh. Oh! Oh! Get up!
Got it.
Okay. You tripping the fuck I was for drinking because you're about to put pliers inside of her? But then it'll be like...
Hand me that.
Wouldn't she just get drunk? What am I gonna disinfect?
This is gonna really fucking hurt.
Oof.
Hold her down. You too.
Again?
Get away from her!
John!
What are you doing to my daughter?
Saving her life.
With that?
Help her leave!
Help or get out.
James, let me.
Ooh. Oh, she passed out. You couldn't stitch her up? Oh, we don't have stuff to stitch her up?
Is she going to make it? I can't lose her. I can't. My poor
I stopped the
Samantha.
bleeding.
The bleeding stopped. That's what matters.
All of this while sober is crazy.
Tell me.
God, I'm a huge vodka drinker. I would have just chugged that mini bottle so quick.
You appear out of nowhere. Was my daughter nearly bleeding to death?
I saved your daughter's
I saved Sam.
life.
Carried her through a walker-infested forest back to you.
When Sam wakes up, we'll see what really happened.
So tough.
Look
Oh my
at me.
God.
I don't know who the hell you are, but
Dad! Dad? Where's Greg?
Uh-oh. Sam should tell you.
Sam should be the one to tell you.
Tell us what?
Greg didn't come back with them.
What? What do you mean?
Uh-oh. Look at the little kids. The kids are crying.
it's okay, boys.
Womp womp. Whoa, this is awkward. What do I do now? Oh, the PTSD is coming. Shen will forget to give the patient anesthesia. You know, that may be true. This is why I didn't learn. I didn't go inside the medical field, guys. I can't believe you put vodka on her. She'll be fine. Also, what vodka? Why did they have vodka but not like alcohol?
Colette? Elodie? You girls in here?
Evidence?
Elodie.
Elodie? Drink? Colette. Colette and Elodie. What is that? A tiger? Tiger? Evidence? What evidence am I looking for? Windows? Oh! Oh! I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Thank you for the reading. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you, thank you. Oh, corpse. Thank you for reminding me. We're gonna pretend that didn't happen. Wait, is there more to look here? Oh no. No? Dining table.
Dinner. No one ate anything though.
Okay. Can I go here? Nothing, nothing. Tung, tung, tung. Go. Another body. Kitchen knife? Pick it up. Phone grip? Oh, what the heck? Not phone grip. Cordless phone. What the heck did I just read? Pick it up. Redial. Moshi moshi. Where the heck was gripping that? I don't know. I don't know why I said that.
How did I miss that?
I don't know what I even read. I saw phone and my mind automatically like goes to grip. What the heck is a phone grip? I don't even know what a phone grip is. The voices in my head, they're taking over, guys. They're taking over. Oh God, I'm actually going crazy. Oh, rolling suitcase. Unzip.
You left this all behind?
Oh. Is this Ghostface? Do you like scary movies? What's your favorite scary movie? Answer phone.
Hello?
Michonne, it's Donna.
Donna?
I've been trying to get a hold of their dad. Are the girls with you? I don't know where they are. No one's answering.
I'm looking for them.
I've been looking for them.
Me too. God, I hope they're okay. I talked to Dominic earlier, but there was screaming, crying. It was horrible. I don't know if it was him or who, but
Wait, are her daughters still alive?
the girls too. Crying. I couldn't stand it.
Where was he taking them?
Terrified.
Donna, where was he taking the girls?
Here, to my place, outside the city. Thought it'd be safer.
Thank you for the blurb.
We have to find them. They could be anywhere. And if we can't get a hold of them, I don't. Where do we?
I'm going to keep searching.
I'm gonna keep searching here.
Oh. Keep listening.
Who were you talking to?
Oh. She's schizo.
Did you say Donna? You okay?
Just remembering someone.
Just thinking about someone I once knew.
It's okay. I do that too. John, he went to talk to the kids, make sure they're all right, while I watched over you.
She was just watching me be schizo.
Sorry about this. John isn't big on people he doesn't know.
How are the kids?
How are the kids holding up?
I don't know. Can't be good. Their brother's dead, sister's shot. I mean, fuck, right? So, yeah, this is where I apologize for almost shooting you.
Awkward.
Emphasis on almost. I was just worried.
No hard feelings.
Don't worry about it. Happens more often than I like to admit.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm not a great shot.
Oh, look at the
His mom's
kids.
buried there.
was so dramatic. He's just sitting in the
so
rain.
back, she just...
Oh, damn.
She was sick. Not in the head. Something with her heart.
Okay, so Greg is the...
I never understood that.
I tried the same thing.
I tried the same thing. But a friend stopped me.
Okay, so John is the grandfather.
How could you not?
Greg is the son. And the kids are grandchildren.
Like I said, bad shot. If it wasn't for Sam...
He looks so young though. Yeah.
No. No. I'm here, Sam. Hey, don't move, okay? Don't move. And Sam, no.
Michonne, we have to help him.
He's dead!
You're too weak. Let me up. Just stay down, Sam.
You're hallucinating, Sam. Greg isn't here, okay?
Sam.
Somebody slap her! Snap out of it!
I know John can make a strong first impression, but he's what's keeping this entire family from being buried out there.
So he got sent back to the pre-game lobby.
You gotta fight like hell for what you care about, right? Something that makes all this shit work.
He can't protect everyone.
You try to protect everyone, you end up protecting no one.
Better than not trying at all.
I need a word with you.
With me?
In private.
And oh, are we gonna kiss? I'm so sorry. I don't know why I keep... I don't know why I keep wanting to kiss everyone. The degeneracy, guys. Why are we talking in the rain? We couldn't we couldn't talk in like a separate room or something. That would have been more convenient.
A son?
2 daughters.
2 little girls.
A big old kiss. Aww.
It snowed the day my wife died. Her heart gave out.
Oh.
Sam found her. She passed in her sleep. We buried her so the boys wouldn't have to see her like that. The snow, it covered her grave. Erased it.
I heard she killed
Like she'd
herself.
never been there at all.
Paige said she killed herself.
Wait, I'm so confused.
I
Do
want
all...
my children to think of their mother differently.
Wait, never
I
mind.
wonder why she'd given up. Ever since Sophia, I've tried to keep our family from harm. But we're falling apart, piece by piece. And now that Sam's hurt, and Greg's...
Okay, he's the dad and all the kids are his kids. Okay.
These kids deserve a real childhood. Someplace where fear isn't the norm. If I can give them even a sliver of that, I'll die happy.
I can do what I
You got a
can.
good thing going here. Safe house, nice family. It's more rare than you know. I'll see what I can do.
Thank you. Children shouldn't have to see this.
Toss it.
Greg.
Toss it over the
never
fence.
turned into one of these things, did he? Or those, whatever they are.
He was always Greg.
He was Greg until the end.
I lied. I lied to him. Honestly, he didn't have to open that door. He could have just tossed it over.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep it together. But what if you just found
Let
out
it
your daughters
go.
were dead?
Let it go. Just cry, my man. Just
And
cry.
you weren't there. You were miles away, safe and sound. How would you feel?
You have to stay strong.
The kids need you to stay strong.
You're right. I'm all they have.
Why do they always do that? Why do they always do that every time? Oh my god, God, please. Every time. Every time, whenever someone is having like a wholesome moment, bang, like right in the head. Oop. At least he's with his wife now. Oh. Wait, why is it red? Why is it so red? This guy? Ooh. Oh. Yo, that's insane! That's insane! That's gotta hurt so bad! Holy! Human shield? Oh my god, Michonne, you're a badass! There's only one! 2v1, 2v1! Oh, I'm on top of him. Oh my god. Thank you for the flame. Thank you. Oh, he's knocked the hell out. Oh, it's gotta hurt. Oh, it's gotta hurt so bad. Am I gonna tell her the old man is dead?
Shit. You must be pretty proud of yourself, huh? Caught yourself a golden goose.
I'll ask the question. Kick him in the nuts. He's vulnerable right now.
Won't this be fun?
That's up to you. Does Norma know we're here?
She doesn't even know I'm here. Otherwise, you'd be hearing a neighborly knock on your door right about now.
Randall? Randall, are you getting this?
Want to get that for me?
We heard gunshots. If you don't check in, I'm sending everyone in that direction.
Shit. She sounds pissed.
Randall, pick up, goddammit.
You gonna answer? Someone should.
Yeah.
Make Randall answer.
Tell her my hands are iced up, and I've swallowed a pint of my own blood.
You heard her. Randall needs to check in.
You know, this feels mighty familiar. Except you're there, and I'm here. So, Michonne, what do you want me to say to her? On account of me hoping to avoid more broken fingers, your wish is my command.
Call off your
Call
sister.
off your sister, or I break every bone in your hand.
I'll play nice. Hey, Norma.
Randall, are you all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. Hey! I wasn't finished yet. I was doing what you said, Michonne.
You set it up.
Said all you needed to. Nice try.
That's all you gotta hear.
Randall? I lost you. What were you saying? All right, then. We'll check in on you soon.
This is good, right? This is good, right?
Think you're a clever girl, huh? Norma will know something's wrong soon
Yeah, I'm
enough.
so clever.
And if I can find you, she'll find you. You know, this alone time, you and me together, it's been real nice. But that all ends when my sister gets here.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna take that wrench and break your skull. Then Sam's and yours. And last but not least, those kitties too.
Holy.
I saw their little heads in the window. Kids, you know, their skulls don't break so much as kind of melt.
Titanium
like
Vice?
rotted pumpkin. Guess I hit a button.
Michonne.
Hey now, don't you two look like your daddy? Back when he still had a face.
Oh my god.
What?
Yeah, got a big hole there now.
Let the kid kill him.
Is that true? Please tell me he's fucking with us.
Randall, kill your dad.
Please.
Randall, kill your dad.
Randall murdered your dad, Sam.
I put his nuts in his...
If he killed my dad, then why isn't this son of a bitch dead?
First good question asked all night. Michonne's just been fumbling around like a bear cub fucking a
He'll die
football.
soon.
He keeps opening his
Soon.
mouth. He'll be dead soon.
We should do it right fucking now. You need to kill him, or I will.
You do it.
Sam, wait!
Can I let her do it?
Well, I ain't had the bell of the ball. Well, maybe that's you. Because when this dance is over,
Oh, do I get to kill him now?
you're fucked. Kill me. And Norma.
So you mean next?
Fucked. Let me live, and I do even worse. Fucked. But we both know how this is gonna end, Michonne. You like killing. Then you'd like killing me, wouldn't you? Just tell old Randall the truth. I got thick skin.
Better you than me.
I'm sure you'd like to see me dead too.
If it's in the cards. Well, maybe you think you can rise above all that. But there ain't no heaven up there, honey. And there ain't no hell down below. There's only this shit every
Oh my
day
god, he
until
yaps so
you
much.
die. And you know what's the fucking kicker?
He's doing his villain monologue.
You get up and keep.
Get to the fucking point.
If you got a point, get to it already.
On my way, darling.
Oh, he's calling me darling.
This is the world your kids are dying in, Michonne.
Oh my god.
Or dying in. Or are in that fucking purgatory.
Shut up. Don't talk about that.
Either way, they're suffering. And Mommy isn't there.
Oh. Are you gonna do it? Are we gonna do it?
We all have our demons, honey.
Kill him. I shadow his dome one piece. What do we do now? Are we gonna run away? That's it! That's it for episode 2? What, that was so short!
Low places.
Wait, we're already on episode 3? The last episode?
Where you only have your thoughts for company. And those can be mean. Nasty. You want to believe all lives and every place have a purpose. Believe me, they don't. It's true. Things always fall apart. But we're the ones who bring them down.
Did you keep Pete with you or let him go on him? You and 17% of players let Pete go. Whoops, my bad. Did you reveal to Paige that you nearly committed suicide? You and 30% of players disclose your darkest moments. Give no shelter. Sheesh. That was so short. That was only like an hour and a half. The first episode was like 2 hours long. Wait, no, the first... How long was the first episode? Like an hour? Man, that was so quick. Oh wait, this is a DLC. Probably short. God, is there a way to skip this? Please. Oh. Episode 3. What we deserved? Previously on The Walking Dead, Michonne.
No! Hey!
Randall should be the one laying there. Not your brother.
Pete, if you're sure about this.
Don't worry. I've got this.
They had some supplies just sitting out, and Norma caught me. I didn't think she was going to, but she let me go. Michonne, what is it?
What is it? Are we gonna find out more about her lore? I feel like I'm still clueless on what happened. She goes home, she finds her kids missing. Apparently they got taken to Donna house. But we don't know if they're dead or not. But is she seeing hallucinations of her kids? Thank you for the head pass, thank you for the hydrate, thank you, thank you. What am I looking at? Oh, her kids! Are we on the boat? Two weeks earlier. Oh, we're gonna see Pete again.
Hope you're not thinking about jumping. Because if you do, I'm gonna have to come in after you. Not looking forward to that. Water's
Just
gonna
needed
be
some
nice,
space.
I just needed some space.
Well, you're gonna need a bigger boat. Oh, freezing my arse off. Here. Coffee will warm you up.
Coffee? Take a sip. I love coffee! I'm so glad you gave me caffeine. Thank you for the blurb.
You sound like my ex-wife. She was more of a rum girl.
Hey, City, did you hear the one about the kids who took over the boat? What? Oh, no, Birdo, no. It was a mutiny.
A mutiny? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I despised the lot of them when I first got on board. But they
Rum
grow
is
on you.
beloved. Rum is great.
Like
love rum.
mold they are. Nah, sorry, that's shit, isn't it?
They're growing on me
They're growing on me
too.
too. Kinda nice that people can still joke around.
It's a fine line between the court jester and the village idiot. You can guess which side I think he's on. Before I joined up with Pete, my brother and I were cooped up in an old canning factory. Food for ages.
Now pull out a jar of
Happy
sand.
people.
A jar of sand.
Then a young girl got taken. We followed a trail. It wasn't hard with all the blood. Ended up cornering the people who took her in this warehouse. All 10 of us went in. Only I came out.
Oh. Damn. 9 people casualty. Why'd you bother?
Why'd you go after her?
Because back then, I still thought I could make a difference. After my brother, I just want to make it through another day. A few weeks later, I came across Pete, ways up the coast. He saw that look on my face and he offered me a job. Didn't ask any questions, didn't turn me away, just welcomed me in.
He shouldn't have hired you.
Pete's a good goddamn
I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that.
I know you think Pete walks on water, but he makes mistakes too.
Like what?
Hiring you.
Well, it's too late now.
Okay, that's such a weird laugh.
Routine is winding down, so we can finally play cards. Care to join us? It'd be nice to have you there. Besides, none of us can remember the rules, so it'll be the most
Deal me in.
unique game of Go Fish you've ever played.
Yeah. Deal me in.
Sounds like a challenge. You might regret it when I win that machete of yours.
Oh, is it the present? It's a blue moon.
I'm sure you want to be there. I need to see him. I need to see that bastard's face.
He's dead though. I killed him.
Oh God, he's dead.
How could you?
If he's dead, so are we.
He got what he deserved.
He got what he deserved.
You wanted him
Who's not
dead.
gonna care why you did it.
I wanted this. I did, but seeing him now, I wish I'd been the one to do it.
Wow.
Sam,
Wow. I should have made her do it.
My family. I should have killed Randall myself.
You're not a killer.
You're not a killer, Sam. Don't become one.
You don't know what I am.
Sam, calm down.
My dad isn't even in the fucking ground yet, and you want me to calm down?
She's crashing out.
I didn't mean he ruined everything. He killed. I know. You don't know.
Wait. You hear that?
Michonne, it's Pete. Please pick
Pete?
up.
Pete?
Something's happened.
Pete is still alive?
I don't have much time.
I'm right here.
Thank God. There's something you have to know. Norma and her people, they have the crew. Sadiq, Oak, and Berto.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry. They're all in good hands here. But them staying that way is up to you. So listen closely. I'm willing to trade my brother for your friend.
Oh, he's
But
dead.
anything you do to Randall, I will do to them.
Oh.
Do you understand?
He's dead. Deal? Lighter?
You don't owe us anything. I just want to keep them safe.
That goes both ways.
That goes both ways. Anything you do to them, I'll do to Randall.
Better not touch him. We'll be there by sunrise.
Oh, he's
You ready
dead.
for us?
What'd I do? What'd I do? Oh God. I killed him. Yeah, I should have kept him alive.
Shit.
I mean, we can pretend he's alive. He's technically a zombie, you know? Just cover his face with a bag. Be like, here's your brother. You know? Do you guys know? Have you guys ever like busted your knee so bad that like it literally hurts so much? Like the other day, I hit my knee on like the side of a grill. And like, oh my God, it was so painful that I literally fell down to my knees. And in like a dramatic way, you know?
She's coming here for her brother. When she sees
And
the
I have a big old bruise on it. No, you guys haven't? Oh
At least
god.
you can walk,
It hurts
right?
so much.
if you can call that walking. Norma wants her brother.
This better
It's
work.
not like there's another option here.
This better work.
It will, I think. Even if it does work, then what?
Bruce is crazy. What did that girl do to you? Honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know how I hit it. I
Norma's
was
not
just
gonna
like
leave us
walking.
alone.
Well, my
She
dogs
won't
was like
stop
running
just
around.
because
I
we
was like
gave her
walking
brother back.
around, like
Even
the
if he was
grill,
alive,
and
he
like
still
my
burned all
leg.
that
I
shit.
guess I didn't walk far enough. My leg
trade
was
for
like
your
cutting
friends, we'll
corners
go
for
after
some
the back
reason,
and get the hell
and like
out of
I
here.
hit the
But
girl
she'd take
so
the
bad.
house. Let her have it. She knows where we are now. Hiding isn't an option. So let's just go.
Where will we go?
Where do you propose we go?
I don't know. Does it matter? Anywhere would be better than here. I can't fucking listen
Once
to
by
this.
walking off, did you hold your knee like Peter Griffin? Yeah, I did. I was like, you know?
We're not done here.
Oh, shattered kneecap streamer.
Sam! He's not going anywhere.
Oh. The dad! You're going to hurt yourself.
Stop. You're gonna hurt yourself.
At least help her bury him.
Damn it.
You know?
Sam, stop. Maybe you're all ready to walk away, but I'm not just gonna leave him like this. We couldn't give my mom a real funeral. My dad and I had to bury her here. Just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
He'd want to be with
We
her.
can make it if we try.
That's all
I
can give
understand.
him.
I understand. You should be buried with your mom.
But we can't focus on that right now.
We have
to
time.
be ready to leave. I'm not going. What? Sam, you can't still be thinking. My mom is here, Paige. Everything I have of her. And Greg. If you want to leave, go ahead, but I'm not coming with you.
I say leave her. If she don't want to leave, leave her. She don't want to be saved. Don't save her.
I'm sorry. But I can't go. This house meant everything to my dad.
I won't force you to leave.
All I have left.
I won't force you to leave. If you want to stay, that's up to you.
You don't have to leave either. We can defend this house. We can fight them off.
We're not gonna win.
Meanie, you complete me.
I owe you a lot. Sorry it took me so long to say it.
Just the two of us. Help Sam. Leave with the blurb.
I know it's stupid, but I have to finish this. I've got some weapons stashed in my room. Old duffel bag. Should look familiar. You should make sure everyone's armed before Norma gets here.
Okay. Is it gonna be the same duffel bag she stole? Thank you for the head pass. Thank you for the hydrate. It is the same duffel bag.
Hey.
I was just wanted to know what it felt like. I wasn't gonna shoot it.
Welcome, man. 478. Guten Morgen. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? How's your day? How are you guys? I'm doing great. I'm doing great. We're just playing some The Walking Dead DLC, Michonne. Michonne. I'm on the last episode. Well, I just started the last episode.
Can I help? I want to do something.
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead. Those slide in there. Round side forward.
I woke up 30 minutes ago. Good morning, good morning. How is your morning?
How would they just
Are you getting
die
some
like
breakfast?
Greg and Dad. I thought we were safe here.
Don't cry,
What am I
little
supposed
boy.
to do?
You have to be smart.
You have to be smart. That's how you survive.
My dad was the smartest guy I knew. That didn't save him. The guy who did it killed my dad. He's gotta. I mean, the things he said. The way
He's
he was
dead.
laughing about Dad.
He's dead.
Randall is dead, James. I killed him.
Heard you guys talking.
Oh my
There's
god.
more people coming to the house. Sam's hurt.
Your profile picture is cool. Is the idol anime your favorite? Not my favorite, but I really do
Can't
love it
hurt.
though. I do love it.
You have to stop them.
Protect
Your
her.
sister will be with me. I'll make sure she's safe.
Have you watched Idol? Do you like
Yeah.
it? I think it's a great anime.
don't
The
know if I'm
manga,
ready.
I read the manga before I watched the anime.
Enough to have
It was
one.
really good until it got to the weird point.
She didn't always come to this.
Oh, Michonne is schizo.
What's the hold up? Prisoner's not cooperating. What he wants to do? We don't have time for this. Get him moving.
Can I look around first before I do anything? The door to the garage. Okay. Sam's room? Are we gonna look? Door to the outside. Door to the kitchen. What map?
Wow. She's been all over the world. Those days are long gone now. Sam's passport. This must be her mother. Sophia Fairbanks.
Ooh.
Almost out of space in
I liked
this.
it. It was pretty cool. Yeah, it's a really cool anime. Really, really cool. But then, like, I don't know if this is spoiling if you haven't, like, read the manga. Like, in the manga, it becomes a little bit, like, weird. But it's still really interesting, though. Really interesting. Once they found out, like, each other's, like, identities, like, the truth, it gets a lot more interesting. Kiss photo.
James and Alex. Wonder how they
A
get
blue
through this.
cow. Blue cow.
Old record player.
Picture? Wait, those are my kids. Okay. Let me go upstairs. Go upstairs. Oh, creepy
Is that-
music.
Music?
Over here!
Here, over here.
Open door.
Can I come in?
Oh, he's hiding in the closet. You okay?
You doing okay in here? I bet that was scary before when I brought your sister in. But she's okay now.
Nothing can hurt me in here. As long as I stay in my fortress, I'm safe.
This is
Keeps all the bad
fortress?
stuff out. I put pillows and blankets against the wall.
Very
Looks pretty
sturdy looking.
I bet it's kept you nice and safe for a long time. That's good.
It has to. Because of them. I know what those monsters out there are. Wendigo.
Wendigo.
Grandma told me about them. It's what
He's
happens
calling
when
us
someone
zombies Wendigos.
eats another person.
Oh? I hadn't heard that one before.
Do they scare you too? They make lots of noise. Even at night.
Yeah, they
I'll
scare
tell
me
you a
too.
secret. They scare me too sometimes.
Really? But my dad's not scared of them.
Well, your
I've
dad's
been
dead.
waiting for him. Where is he? Why didn't he come get me yet? Where is my
A
dad?
bad man hurt
So
him.
sorry, Alex. Something terrible happened. A bad man came and hurt your dad.
What?
He shot him.
Why is that Michonne the one like breaking the bad news to everyone?
What is it?
Hold Alex, please. Huggies. Don't cry. Don't cry.
Did my dad become one of them? It's what happens, right?
Your dad is still your
No.
dad.
Your dad didn't become one of them. He's still your dad.
It's not fair.
You need to be strong.
You need to be strong, okay?
I can't.
Hey, keep the chatter to a minimum. Our friends are listening.
Oh god. You know, I never knew what to do whenever somebody's crying. What do you do? What do you do? I don't know. Like, I had this one friend. She cries a lot because she's like, oh, she's always dating someone, you know. And like they break up and like she cries. And like, what do you do? You know, I like hug her, and then she's like sobbing on my shoulder, and I let her go. I look at my shoulder, and my shoulder is like wet. Damn. Yeah, that was the womp womp.
Poor Greg.
Poor Greg. Greg? What room is this? Oh, diploma?
I remember getting my law degree. Doesn't mean much now.
Damn, law? Aww.
They look
Wedding
really
photo.
happy together.
Oh, wait, she wrote him a letter? That's so sad.
John, take care of our children and take care of yourself. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't help or explain anything, but it's true. I can't stand watching you and the kids suffer, knowing what's going to happen to me and what I'll become. Better to spare you that pain.
Damn.
I love you more than anything. Sophie.
Oh, oh my god, that spooked me a little bit. That spooked me a little bit. Oh, can I open these? No. Go downstairs. Okay, I think we could leave now. Or not? Wait, what's this?
This must be how they reinforce the gate. Hope it keeps Norma out.
Gas tank?
Nearly empty. Worked better than I thought.
Look at Randall. I got the supply. Approach Sam, leave Sam alone. You need help?
Hey, Sam.
Hey, thanks for before. I couldn't have moved it myself. Something you need?
Want some help?
Want a hand?
No. Having something to do helps me not think about everything. Paige thinks we're not safe here. That we need to move on. Bet she's trying to convince you to leave too. She's wanted out of here for a while.
I'm not leaving without you. You should talk
You should
to
try
her.
talking to Paige. Are you really ready to let her walk away? If you care about each other.
Then she should understand why I need to stay. It's just so much of this place is my dad. It's all of us. He worked his way up from nothing. Took a job cleaning houses, paid his way through law school. When he bought this house, it was proof that he'd made a better life for us. We grew up here. Maybe I'm crazy, but I can't let that
Crazy?
overcome us.
I was crazy once.
He was so proud of what he built. This place kept us safe. We were happy
Norma
here.
doesn't care.
Norma doesn't care about any of that. She's coming here, and she's not gonna stop just because this place has sentimental value.
I know. I don't expect you to understand. You found the bag.
Yeah, here.
Thanks. I should get back to work.
Okay. Can I go back and talk to James? No? I can't? Sam's room. Oh. Oh, his drawing?
Alex must have drawn this one. I hope he's okay.
Oh, wait, I can't leave no more.
Sam's mom wrote this. Took Sam to see the Eiffel Tower. Don't think she cared much for it, but we found a little shop on the way back and ate about 50 macarons each.
Macarons?
Pregnancy. Sam blames our shared sweet tooth. At least Sam has some happy memories to hold on to.
Oh my god. Thank you for the blame. Thank you for the blame. I can't leave. Okay, this is to go inside Sam's room. Where do I go? Did I have to find Paige? Where's Paige? She's not here. Is she in this room? Play gramophone?
Look, look, see that matchless host march along in the Lord's they boast, for Pharaoh's army got drowned. And oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you weep, for Pharaoh's army got drowned. And oh, Mary, don't you weep. Who are the people who look so grand? They must be headed for the promised land, for Pharaoh's army got drowned. And oh, Mary, don't you weep. They are so happy, just hear them sing. They must be looking for the coming king, for Pharaoh's army got drowned. And oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Michonne's like, let's stop that. Oh! Iron poker.
Not gonna be able to look at that the same way again.
Oh. I thought we were gonna grab it. Okay, back upstairs. Where have I not gone yet? This room? Door? Oh no, that was a closet! Never mind, he's hiding in a closet. Forgot. Paige! Give ammo?
Oh, hey, I didn't hear you come in.
Here.
Talk to Sam downstairs?
Were you able to talk some sense into her? Or do you still think digging a hole is a good use of Sam's time? I've never seen her like this.
I'm not gonna stop her.
I'm not gonna stop her from burying her father.
You act like I'm doing this to be cruel. I get why she wants to do it, but we just can't. Not with Norma on her way. I don't know.
We have time. Let her do it. Let her do it.
I'll be out of your hair soon enough. Never belonged here anyway. Same as you. That's one thing we got in common. Squatters and
That's
other
not why
people's
you're
lives.
leaving.
But that's not why you're leaving.
I mean, it's part of it. Call it self-preservation, but I've gotten pretty used to knowing when it's time to cut and run. Norma's gonna be here soon. If they're not ready, I won't stick around just to watch this fall apart. She's so stubborn, though. I just hope it doesn't get her killed this time.
And stay.
Sam needs you.
Sam needs you. You're gonna regret it if you leave. Trust me.
The Fairbanks kept me safe, but I don't know if I can do the same for them.
How dare! How dare you! How dare you! Unhelpful. Okay, talk to Sam. Oh. Oh my god.
Oh, Michonne. I'm looking for Alex. Have you seen him? I want him to be there when I say a few words for Dad. He wasn't at Mom's funeral.
He's in his
He should be there
closet.
for this.
He's hiding in his closet.
Thanks. I'll go get him. I'll meet you outside.
No, they're gonna crash the funeral.
Sam? You okay?
Greg and Dad? I don't really know what to say. Where am I supposed to start? I don't know.
I'm not gonna say nothing.
I think it should just be family here.
Okay, I'm leaving.
I'll give you a moment.
You all right? You look a little... well, like you're losing it a little bit.
Thinking about my kids.
Just remembering my kids.
Did they... you know...
I don't know. I wasn't with them.
I don't know what happened to my family either. I thought about joining them, but it felt weird. I mean, I live here, but I'm still not family, you know? They treat me like I am, but I know that's not true. Family
I know
is
the feeling.
different.
I know how that is. I've tried starting over, but it felt somehow disrespectful to the family I lost.
I decided to stay. For
Oh.
Sam. Don't
She's
get
gonna
cocky.
die.
It had nothing to do with what you said.
Oh.
She's here! I thought we had more time. It's okay. It's gonna be okay.
Sam!
Just go upstairs with your brother, okay? I need you to hide until I come get you.
What's gonna happen? He gonna hurt us? You'll stop them, right? Right?
Just
I'll
get
protect you.
upstairs.
Whatever happens, I'll protect you.
Stay together, no matter what.
We will. Okay.
I can get a clear shot of the front gate from upstairs. I'll cover you. If I can.
Don't
I
miss.
hope it doesn't come to that.
Don't miss.
I
Don't
hope I
miss.
don't. Paige, if anything goes wrong, I need you to take care of James and Alex.
Don't talk like that.
Paige, please.
Sam, you know I'll...
Stop arguing. Just do what you're supposed to do.
Grab Randall and meet us outside.
Should have muffled him so he doesn't make any like noises. Zombie noises.
It's quiet out there. You ready for this? Getting your crew back?
Stay alert.
Just stay alert and be ready for anything. We don't know what Norma's planning.
You got it.
Here we go. Here we go.
What's going on?
I had my people hang back a bit. I wanted to talk first. Just us. Clear the air a little.
Just hear her out, Michonne.
Where's Pete crew?
Where's Pete's crew?
They're not far. Don't worry.
Now, where did I get this feeling that Pete
I know you're worried.
like switched sides?
So here. See? I can be reasonable.
Thought you can get rid of me, huh?
Are you okay?
She hurt you?
Did she hurt you?
I'm fine. Let's just get our crew back and get out of here.
Oh.
Listen, Monroe is gone. Sunk down in the water like everything I built. You and I, we've each taken from the other. All I want now is my brother back. That's all. And I'll
My
leave
people
you be.
first.
You'll get Randall after you hand over my friends.
I brought you Pete. You'll get the rest when I get my brother.
Careful, Michonne.
A show of good faith, then. Any minute now. Safe and sound, just like I said. Now, I want to see my brother.
Why the hell are we standing here? We're all homeless because of her.
Can you stop? We should be
Womp
dead.
womp.
That is not what we are here for. Now be quiet. My brother, now. I have given you what you wanted. I just want to see him.
As for all of your people.
Then I'll give you Randall.
Hand them over!
I think I've been more than reasonable. Show me Randall.
Oak!
Hey, put the gun down.
No, Oak!
I could shoot him and still have 2 more to spare. So you're gonna do what I've asked. Now! I came here willing to talk. But if you're gonna insist on being difficult...
Don't hurt
Hurt
him,
Randall?
Randall!
You wanna try that again?
Holy!
Randall isn't worth all this shit.
Gabby, listen to
After
me.
everything they've done,
I
you're
did-
still giving them more chances.
I did the good thing, right?
Stop!
Oh, shit!
Virgil!
Everyone put your guns down.
I knew we couldn't trust them.
Don't! Stand down! Please, don't hurt him. If
You
you're
shot
not
one
gonna
of
do
my
anything,
men!
We have to. That's not
An
your
eye
fault.
for an eye for an eye, right?
You hurt my crew, and I hurt Randall.
I can make this right.
Ah!
Gabby!
Fuck!
Oh my god, thank you for the flame! Thank you! Like I should get everyone killed? No.
As long as you let Randall go.
I feel like I should
I'm
stall
not
a little
gonna ask
bit, let the
again.
zombies
No one else
Get
has
them.
to die.
Is that a threat?
It doesn't need to be.
I
Oak
want
and
Oak and Sadiq. They start walking, and I'll send Randall out.
Maybe you didn't hear me.
Sadiq, hurry up!
Okay. Ah!
Randall!
Kill him! Get to the house! Now!
Wait, what about Oak? Yeah, Oak was not dead yet, right? He's not dead yet. He was literally crawling on the floor. kill her? Can I kill her? Holy! Oh my god!
Wait! No, wait! God, no! No! Norma!
Leave her to die! Leave her to die!
Come on.
Oh my god! So what were you saying about waterboarding earlier? Oh my god. God damn. But that's literally just like a little puddle. No way you could drown from that, right? Can you?
We gotta hold the door with something. I thought you weren't gonna make it for a minute.
They stopped firing.
They're surrounding the house. We have to get out of here. Where are the boys? Upstairs. Alex, James, hurry up!
Molotov!
Get down!
Where are you?
Girls!
Oh my god. Sure, you drink all the water in that puddle? Hey, just hold your breath, you know? Honestly, I don't know. I'll probably drown. Hurry up, Michelle, hurry up! Oh!
Okay.
Ouch! Oh my god! Oh no! Okay. Hello, Pookie! Hello, welcome in! Shaheen! Welcome, welcome! How are you? How's your day?
I can't see you.
I'm coming!
Kids! Where are you kids? Right now I'm playing some Walking Dead Michonne DLC. You remember me? Do I remember you? I remember the name. You're from one of my previous streams. That's what I remember. Oh. Why is this happening?
Why does this keep happening? What's going on?
Wait, did I kill my kids? Did I get them killed? This isn't real.
I know you're not real. None of this is.
Were you bad at or in school?
I don't know how to make it stop.
Was I bad at or in school?
Just tell me what you want.
Was I bad at or in school? What?
Stop! Where the hell are you? Go back to things, okay?
I was bad in school.
We tried to wait. We're heading to down.
Oh, was I bad in PE school?
She'll come look for us. We have to be here.
That was terrible. I skipped every single like mile
Stay
day.
safe, okay?
Every single day that you have to like run a mile, I skip it. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Oh my god, I thought you finished the game already. Almost. I think I'm like towards the end, actually. I still love you.
I still.
Oh. No. Where are you?
Where are you?
In the closet. Here.
Oh. Please don't go. Oh my god. So you skip gracefully 1 mile instead of running? Nice. Yeah. Basically. Like I saw the credits earlier. Oh, we have to go. Was that like first episode only? Yeah, first episode. I'm already on episode 3, Toshi. Like literally the last episode. The end of the last episode. Don't. When I'm in PE, I get verbally abused in PE because I didn't catch the ball. Really? No, that's terrible. You should talk smack back. You know? No, there's a lot of people like that. Like when I was in PE,
James.
Like if you don't do things right or correctly, other people get so competitive you get yelled at whenever you do a mistake. I have to.
I have to go.
Why?
Damn, I got eaten by work.
Say goodbye, Chris.
NT.
Your mother has to leave.
Leave them? I am gonna leave them.
Stay here with us.
I can't.
Just let her go.
Let me say goodbye.
Dominic, please. Just let me say goodbye.
Come on, Alex. What are you doing?
Tell them you're buying milk.
Girls, enough. Let her leave.
For real, they're acting like it's the Olympics. Yeah. But I hate it going to PE.
Colette. She can't stay.
We can't stay here.
It's too late.
I have to go.
Listen to me. I have to go.
It's always like the annoying kids too, you know? Like the loud, like annoying kid.
I'm not leaving you here.
Michonne, freaking leave, please.
Hi. I'm so sorry.
They're not real. They're not real. You know, all I gotta say is Pete is alive, you know? I know all of you guys in the beginning was like, oh, you abandoned Pete. You know, you abandoned Pete. Pete is dead because of you. Oh, you killed Pete. He's alive, see? I told you he lived. Girl is so delusional, she is. He'll die soon. He's not gonna die. I mean, we lost like two other guys, but that's okay. Plot to armor Pete. Are we gonna turn them into pirates?
Sadiq's gonna take a boat down to what's left of Monroe. Salvage what we can. We can drop you off in Oceanside or maybe one of the other communities up north. It's good people.
Also in PE, my fat ass walking the mile in PE while everyone else runs. It's okay. I think a lot of people walk the mile. Like it's always the super popular girls. Well, in my experience, the super popular girls, they just refuse to run for some reason.
We found
you
my
know.
brothers. We took care of Norma.
I just never show up. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I hate running. I absolutely hate running. Oh my god. I hate running for the life of me. Which is so funny because I played soccer as when I was a kid.
It'll be harder out there without old Gilberto. I need to lean on you a bit more. It's not gonna be the same without them.
Oof. I've got you covered.
I got you covered.
Honestly, I don't really know how I passed PE because I
I
missed literally like every single mile.
I wanted to ask.
But I'm good at sports, you know? I'm good at sports.
We got separated. I heard you calling for your daughters. What happened there? I tried to find you, but I couldn't. I had to get everyone out of.
I was seeing things.
I wasn't thinking clearly. All the smoke. I saw things that couldn't be real.
It's happening.
What sports you good at?
The hallucinations. Hearing things.
I like to say I'm pretty above average in volleyball.
Maybe you
okay?
better start thinking about.
And esports.
What if this doesn't go away?
I'm so athletic in esports. I'm not even kidding.
I was able to walk away. Couldn't keep living in that moment with them anymore.
I think it's time to stop running. Go back to your group, the people you left, your family. Before you can't. If I know anything, it's how goddamn impermanent things are these days.
I
Before you know
will.
it, they'll be gone.
You're right. It's time to go back.
Why don't he join us? Join me.
Come on.
Good DLC, good DLC! Is that all? That's all, that's all! Alright. That should have been me! I saw my ass laughing before I even say a joke. Alright, you know, this is a great spot to end, right guys? A good 3 hours! Alright, time for Sekiro. No, Sekiro for another day, Sekiro for another day. GG's. Alright, thank you all for coming by, thank you all for joining. I don't know what to say. Now you know you want to play Marvel. Marvel like in the morning. like I don't know, 8 hours from now. Anyways, thank you all for coming by. Thank you for all the follows. Thank you for the raids. I hope you guys have a good day, good night. Say bye, Pookies. Goodbye, Pookies. Bye bye, everyone. Make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closets, cause I'm gonna work. Bye bye. Wait, what do you mean wait? Wait, they don't love you like I. Oh, here's a ooh. I don't know. Was that good? I haven't done that in so long. Okay,